Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss Let's Work Out exercises for Chapter 2 Sectors of the Indian Economy. Turn page number 21. You will see a table with examples. We need to find out that activities they are interdependent in the three sectors: primary, secondary, and tertiary. So, first one is done for you. If a farmer refuses to sell sugarcane to a sugar mill, what will happen? The mill will shut down. So, this is an example in which the secondary sector, also known as industrial sector, is dependent on the primary sector. Moving on to the second example. Imagine what would happen to a cotton cultivation if companies decide not to buy from the Indian market and import the cotton from other countries. What will happen to the Indian cotton cultivation? It will become less profitable for the farmers and they might go bankrupt, and they cannot also shift the crop to some other growing of some other crop so instantly, so they will lose. So in this situation, what is happening? The primary sector is dependent on the secondary sector. If they are not buying from the farmers, their crop is not earning them profit. Next situation, farmers buy many goods such as tractors, pump sets, electricity, pesticides, and fertilizers. If the prices of these things goes up, then the farmers they have to pay more. The cost of cultivation will increase and their profits will fall. In this example, we see the farmers are dependent on the industries. That is, the primary sector is dependent on the secondary sector. Students, I am leaving the last example for you to do by yourself. You have to do this activity in your books. Moving on to the exercise at the bottom. The first one we have done to complete the table. Second is explain the difference between the primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors, and also give their examples. Now you will put a line in between the three sectors. You will write primary sector, then second heading will be secondary sector, and the third heading will be tertiary sector. You will write the definition. Primary sector is connected with the extraction and production of natural resources. This is the definition of primary sector. Secondary sector, it is concerned with processing of materials which are already extracted at the primary stage. So they bring about value addition. So what examples can be put in the primary sector? Like mining or dairying activities. These are all connected with the primary sector. You can write horticulture, and you can also write many other examples that you find comes under this category. In the second sector, you can write like making jewelry from gold. It is an example of secondary sector. Next comes the tertiary sector. So this is a sector which provides services to to both the primary and secondary sector, banking, insurance, transportation, or any other example. You can also refer to your page number. Yes, the previous page, that is page number 20, where so many examples are given. That's why I am not discussing them. You see, so many manufactured goods are there, which are drawn also. A shirt is given, car is given, shoes, and so many things are there as manufactured products. Also tertiary services and primary activities. So refer to this page for the definition also and more examples also. Coming towards the next question, you need to identify that these occupations, to which sector they belong to: primary, secondary, or tertiary. Question number 3. Tailor. Yes, he belongs to the tertiary sector because he is providing services. Next, basket weaver. Try this out. To which sector he will belong? He is making baskets using the jute. Jute is a primary product. He is adding value to the jute, so he is working in the secondary sector. Next comes flower cultivation. This is also a very good example of primary sector. Why? Because flowers, they are natural resource, and their cultivator, if it is doing cultivation of flower, then he is performing his activity in the primary sector. Milk vendor. He is actually providing service because he is doing milk delivery from door to door. Next comes fisherman. He is coming in the category of primary sector. Then priest, he is providing services, tertiary sector. Courier, tertiary sector. Workers in match factory. So it's clearly given a factory, working in a factory, secondary sector. Money lender, tertiary sector because he's providing services. Gardener, you can put him into the primary sector also and tertiary also. Potter, primary. Beekeeper, primary. And then next comes the astronaut. Beekeeper you can put into the secondary also. Astronaut you will keep in the tertiary sector. Call center employees in the tertiary sector. So keeping in mind these things, you will put the various occupations in the 3 categories. Question number 4. Students in school are often classified into primary, secondary, or junior, senior. What is the criteria that is used? Do you think that it is useful? Now, we already know students are classified in school according to on the basis of the class in which they study. They are junior or senior. Okay. So, why this is useful? Because they can be classified according to classes and they can be taught as per their different age group. So, it is very important. According to their different age group, they are taught in different classes. You don't need to write question number 3 and 4. You will only write question number 2 in your copies. So, take this. Next, Let's move on to the page number 23 in your books. Let's work out exercise. What does the history of developed countries indicate about the shifts that have taken place between the sectors? So, the history of developed countries indicate there has been a major shift from the secondary or manufacturing industry to the tertiary sector or service sector. The service sector has become most important in the economy, and most of the people are employed in the service sector in case of the developed countries. You can write this in your copies. Next, correct and arrange the important aspects of calculating GDP from this jumble. To count goods and services, we add the numbers that are produced. We count all those that were produced in the last 5 years. Since we shouldn't leave out anything, we add up all the goods and services. So, what does it mean? It means we count the value of all the final goods and services that are produced in a particular year. So, moving on to the next, let's work out. Answer the following questions on page number 24. They are asking you which was the largest producing sector in 70-71, which is largest producing sector in 2010-11. So you will refer to the table. Graph number 1. You will see and compare which sector is prominent in 70-71 and 2010-11. Can you say that, the third question states, can you say that which sector has grown most over the years? So, if you see which sector has grown most over the year in the graph, GDP is output. If you see the purple color in the 2 years, the purple color has become the most prominent, and it is, by the length you will see, it is the largest. So which sector is become most important? Tertiary. And which was the largest producer in 70-71? See the green color, it is largest, primary sector. Now it becomes tertiary, which is the largest producing sector. What was the GDP of India in 2011? So you will write in terms of numbers. Your data may be new in your books. It may refer to 2013-14. So depending on whatever is given in your books, write down the answers accordingly. Moving on to the next exercise. Page number 27. Yes, if you see, there is a table given at the top. You need to complete this table according to the data that is given to you in your books. You will refer to the graph number 2 and graph number 3 in your books, which are given on page number 24 and page number 25 respectively. Take down the share in GDP from these two graphs. Then, what are the changes that you observe in the primary sector over a span of 40 years? So, what you will write? In case of primary sector, the GDP contribution you will notice will reduce drastically, and the share of employment will also be reduced, but not to that amount. Okay, so do this by yourself. You need to write the percentage in this table, GDP percent. Next, choose the correct answer. When does underemployment occur? You need to understand the definition. Underemployment is when a person is working less than his full capacity. So according to this statement, you will consider the option number 3, which is correct. Underemployment occurs when people are working less than what they are capable of doing or less than their capacity. Moving on to the next question. Compare and contrast the changes in India with the pattern that was observed for developed countries. We have earlier done an answer that there was a drastic change from the secondary sector to the tertiary sector, where GDP and employment has been contributed most by the tertiary sector. India, we take the case of India in this answer. In India, both the sectors are increasing, secondary and tertiary, but the primary sector, it is falling, it is decreasing. But if we see India, the tertiary sector is more strong, becoming strong enough than the secondary sector also. And secondary sector itself have not been increasing, has not been improving that much. So this is the trend of India. You will write this answer number 3 in your copies. Rest of the answers 1 and 2 you will do in your books. Why should we be worried about underemployment? Because earning capacity of a person is reduced and it results in poor standard of living, and this will turn him into the poverty. Moving on to the next, let's work out on page number 29. Why do you think Narega is referred to a right to work? Because if the government fails in its duty to provide employment, it has to give unemployment allowances to the people. So this is giving the people a right to work. Write it in your copy. Answer number 1. You will also write answer number 4. Why should we be worried about underemployment? The question that we just discussed. Next, imagine you are a village head in the capacity. Suggest some activities you think should be taken up under the Narega Act to increase the income of people. So what are the activities in Narega? Water conservation, water harvesting, drought proofing by digging tube wells, construction of irrigation canals for crops, making provision for irrigation facilities where there are people from the disadvantaged sections are living, renovation of the traditional water bodies, land development for agriculture, horticulture, and construction of dams for flood control, protection, construction of roads for improving rural connectivity. There are so many points you can put in these activities. These are all the different activities that are taken in the rural areas. Write it in your copies. Answer 2. Answer 3. How income and employment increase if farmers were provided with irrigation and marketing facilities? So first of all, if the farmers they are provided with the irrigation facilities, suppose new dams are constructed, canals are dug to irrigate the land, it will lead to a lot of employment generation within agriculture sector, because now it will increase the crop yield. Next, if the marketing facilities are provided, then they will transport their produce, the farmers will transport their produce to nearby markets for sale. Then they need transportation, they need storage of crops. So it will create more employment in case of the transportation. Government should invest money in them, and so more employment will be created for providing marketing facilities. Now you see, this activity is not just providing employment to farmers but to the people in those rural areas. These are the ways of creating employment in the service sector, that is trade or transport. Next is, do it in your copies. Next, all these 4 answers, 1, 2, 3, 4, you will do in copy. In what ways employment can be increased in urban areas? By investing in basic industries, more people will be employed. By improving transportation, more people can be employed to work in the transportation industry. By increasing vocational education courses, people can get educated and get job easily. Giving incentives to industries in urban areas so that they can increase in their capacity, especially the small scale industries. Then tourism can be promoted, then more education can be improved, and this will provide employment to teachers, more teachers, and then health services can be expanded, leading to creating employment for more doctors and nurses. So all these can be done to increase the employment in the urban areas. Moving on to the next page, page number 20, no, it is 31. Okay, look at the following examples. Which of these are unorganized sector activities? So teacher taking a class? No, it is an organized sector. It is not unorganized. Head load worker carrying a bag of cement, he is an unorganized sector. A farmer irrigating her field, unorganized sector. Doctor in hospital, he is an organized sector. A daily wage laborer is working under a contractor, so you will put him also in the category of unorganized. A factory worker going to work in a big factory, he is an secondary sector worker. He is organized. He is working in a big factory which is registered by the government. A handloom weaver working in her house, unorganized. So in the question number 1, point number 2, 3, 5 and 7 comes in the category of unorganized. Next, talk to someone who has a regular job in organized sector and another who works in unorganized. Compare and contrast their working conditions in all aspects. So you will do the question number 2 by yourself. It is an abstract question. Just see, go and talk to the people and you will understand the working conditions. Next is distinguish between organized and unorganized sector. Explain in your own words. So this I will be taking as a difference between the organized and unorganized. This answer is very important, as you see the difference between organized and unorganized, and you need to write properly this answer in your copies. As you see here, I have put up a photograph through the cam scanner for the difference organized, unorganized. You will put a line in between. Workers have job security, first point. Workers do not have job security, the very first point. Next, workers are getting regular monthly salary in organized sector and workers get daily wages in unorganized sector. Rules and regulations are followed here in case of organized sector, and rules and regulations are not followed here in case of unorganized sector. Workers get benefits like provident fund, paid leave, medical benefits, etc. Workers do not get any such benefits. You will write this in unorganized sector. Next, working hours are fixed in case of organized sector. Like if a person is going office, your father is going office, there must be a proper timing like 9 to 6, or if it is for us teachers, it is 7 to 2. But in case of unorganized sector, there is no fixed time. They work for 10 to 12 hours. Next, it is called organized sector because it has formal processes and procedures, and there are no such formal processes and procedures in unorganized sector. Workers' conditions are favorable. Last point, workers' conditions are not favorable. Means the working environment is not good. That is, they are not taken care for their needs, like the safe environment, working environment, or uh, there should be drinking water available to them. These are some of the safe conditions, that the place they are working, it should be bearable conditions they are working in that place. This is what they talk about. So now we are able to understand the difference. Write it in your copies in this way. Now moving further, question number 4. The table shows the estimate number of workers in India in organized and unorganized. So you will do the missing calculations. If it is primary, 2 are in organized. How many are in unorganized? 242 minus 2 is 240. So 240 plus 54 plus 76, you will write the total. Same way, write the total of all the totals. Then you will calculate the percentage in all the 3 sectors. So do this by yourself. You will be able to do it. Simple calculations. Then they are asking what is the percentage of people in unorganized sector in agriculture. So what is the proportion of people? We don't know. Agriculture sector is a big sector, and out of the total people in unorganized sector, how many people are coming from this sector is not possible to answer this question. Next, do you agree that agriculture is unorganized sector activity? Why? Yes, because the most workers working in agriculture are not paid regular basis. They are facing the problem of underemployment. There is no job security, there is no holiday, and the farmers depend on the money lenders and relatives for loans. So this is basically an unorganized activity. Next question is a calculation. If we look at the country as a whole, we find what percentage of workers in India are in the unorganized sector, and organized sector employees are available only about dash of the workers in India. So the percentages as far as this book is, 93% people are workers in the India are unorganized, and the rest of the 7% are organized. So you will do the calculations in the table by yourself. Next, you don't need to write any of these answers in your copies. You will only do answer number 3. Now this is also a table on page number 33. You will classify the economic activities into the sectors. What is the criteria used? It is the nature of activity. Most important conclusion and problem indicated, how they can be tackled. You will read the entire let's recall and try to complete this table. No need to do it in your fair copies. Okay? So this is the end of your let's work out exercises, and I hope you have understood them. If you face any problem, we will discuss it in the class. Thank you.